Welcome, everybody. This is Patrick Snow, host of the Patrick and Mary Unstoppable Author Interview Series, where we interview inspiring authors, speakers, coaches, consultants, teachers, philosophers, musicians from all over the world to help you achieve more time, more money, more freedom, more health, more love, more happiness in life. And today, all the way from Chicago, Illinois, we are super excited to welcome our special guest, Taylor, to our program. Taylor is the author of this book, Remembering Your Ancestral Fire, a biracial man's unlikely journey of self-discovery, heeding the call of the Djembe by Michael Taylor. I'm going to read you his bio verbatim. If you want to follow along online, you're welcome to do so. His website is holygoat.com. Again, holygoat.com. About Michael J. Taylor, more commonly known simply as just Taylor, is a biracial human who has been a professional performer, teacher, recording artist, and speaker, and raconteur since 1994. He specializes in and makes his living playing and teaching the West African Djembe drum. However, his presentations offer a wide breadth of metaphors and universal philosophy through his observations and contemplations of life. After beginning his studies in 1999 with a grandmaster drummer, Mamadi Keita, the founder of the Tom Tom Maindang Djembe Academy, Taylor achieved the degrees of TTMDA, Certified Teacher, in 2005, and was the first in the world to achieve the highest degree of TTMDA, a senior certified teacher, in 2006. Today, he is the director of the TTMDA Chicago. Through TTMDA, he teaches and performs with and for youths ages 8 to 108. And I've noticed I like that number, 108. As the founder and driving force behind Holy Goat Percussion, established in 1995, he imports, sells, and repairs West African djembes and dununs. Sample of his work can be seen at his Djembist channel on YouTube. Additionally, Taylor recorded all djembe parts of the Djembefola app for iOS and recorded many of his rhythms for Mamadi Keita's instructional book, Nankama, and Mamadi Keita and his group, Kabin Kofa. With the international corporate training company, Sewa Beats USA, he is the lead facilitator, delivering team building events to corporate clients. He is proud to be in the worlds of grandmaster drummer Mamadi Keita, a messenger of tradition in representing TTMDA. He began drumming through theater and performed and or taught djembe on every continent except Antarctica so far. In his work as a musician with the djembe, he has put this traditional West African instrument into performance art, storytelling, contemporary music, jazz, classical, pop, folk, blues, etc. He's also created drum meditation, a ritual intended to consciously open a portal to the healing and wisdom of the ancestral realm. Whether as an author, educator, professional keynote speaker, storyteller, entrepreneur, video recording artist, corporate team building facilitator, or performer, Taylor brings a unique perspective to his craft. His ability to communicate, instill discipline, and promote creativity, combined with a broad range of life and professional experiences, allows him to focus on the relationship between individual and rhythm drumming. This has led him to an overall philosophy that strives to bridge the gap between all things in rhythm, seeking to find where one's own personal pulse lies in relation to the collective pulse. By way of the West African or non-traditional styles, Taylor demonstrates universally of rhythm in everything he does. Please join me in welcoming Michael J. Taylor, or better known as just Taylor, from Chicago, Illinois, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you. Thank you for that incredible introduction, Patrick.
We are thrilled. Why don't you give us a quick 10, 15 second just so we can hear the sound of this before we begin?
Right on. So this drum, my business partner, my partner in life, my partner in joy, my partner in travels, my partner in exploration in the situation, name the situation, don't matter. I do consider myself a raconteur. That's a storyteller. Why? Because I like to put words to what I see. I like to put words to what I feel. I like to put words to what is shown to me. And through the Tam Tam Mandang Jimbe Academy, Mamadi Keita's school, I teach traditional Jimbe. But that's actually just a portion of what I do. Like Patrick said, I do all kind of different stuff, team building and storytelling and all that kind of thing. But I want you to just hear the sound of the Jimbe first.
Wow. Well, I can't wait. Hopefully you're going to play us a couple of 2 or 3 or 4 other songs as we go. This is spectacular. I'm so excited to chat with you today. Let's go back to the beginning. I'm trying to figure out how we met. Was it a student or something that connected us?
So here's how our meeting actually has a connection to where I teach at the Chicago Waldorf School. All right. I've been on staff at Chicago Waldorf for over 10 years now, teaching Jimbe class. Everywhere I go, it's the same thing. Jail, West Side School, Waldorf, wherever, it's the same thing. I love that. Anyway, so in my Djembe class I teach in the high school at Chicago Waldorf, I oftentimes talk to them about different worldly things, and I was complaining to them about how I really wanted to write a book, but I didn't know how to go about it. I mean, I had done CDs without knowing how to do it, got my way through it, videos, but this, I was just really... So I was complaining to them about it, and one of them said, you know, my mother had that same exact complaint, and she ended up contacting a guy named Patrick Snow to help her get the process going and through the process. And I said, well, I think I'm going to contact a cat named Patrick Snow and see what he knows. So I did, and I don't even know what year that was. It was at least 5 years ago, but that's how it happened.
Well, I am so thrilled and honored to serve as your coach. I love your book. This book cover is one of my all-time favorites. I mean, it looks like you got the djembe drum on your shoulder. You're trekking across the northern African plains. You just come out of the desert. You're going from one village to another, and you're expressing your music, your dance, your philosophy, your grace through this music. So, before we get more into the book, I want to know more about you and your childhood. Have you been a musician your whole life? I know a lot of musicians, they start playing the guitar and then they go to the drums and then they go to the clarinet and then do this and that. Talk about your early life. Talk about how and when you first realized that you had an ear or a beat for music. How did music impact you as a young child, and what led you down this path of discovering this drum?
That's a deep question. That's a whole bunch of deep questions. I love it. All right. So my beginnings musically, I was really a fan of music. The Beatles coming up, first grade, second grade, third grade, la, 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 la. About fifth grade, I started taking piano lessons and did that for a couple of years and got bored. And it was my teacher. You know, and now I'm a teacher. I know it was the teacher that was boring. It wasn't the thing. You know what I mean? But whatever, I got bored. I started doing sports, so I stopped the piano in just about 2 years. I could read the notes on the page and stuff like that, la la la. But I wasn't no Mozart or anything like that, but I could play. So some years go by. I entered theater in high school, and that's my first love of art. And this actually relates to the answer to the question, just to let you know. But I was into theater. I loved it. I actually auditioned for my first play to meet girls. I'll say that out loud now. I'm not ashamed of that. But it worked for that, and I met really interesting people, and I love theater as well. And so I did that for a number of years, and that actually, and again, so I haven't done music since like fifth grade at this point, right? So then I graduate high school, I go into college, and I want to get back into theater, okay? So a friend of mine who I suggested go into theater himself in college when he was my band's sound man for a little while. Oh, I forgot to mention the band. I joined a band again in college because I could play enough keyboards to do things, and pop music is easy. So for 5 years, I was in a band in college, and a cat that was the roommate of one of the band members was our stand-in sound person. I said to him, you should go. I felt strongly about the fact that I think he thought he should go study theater. So I suggested it to him. He said, really? Okay, bam. Leaves school and goes to Columbia College in Chicago, gets a theater degree, bam. Now, bring us back up to me. I'm after graduated college. I'm kind of floating in life, and I'm like, I want to get back into theater. And I know who to contact, the guy that I sent to go be in theater. Well, he got a degree from Columbia College, and I go, Steve Meyer, where's the auditions? And he turned me on to one. And for the first time in my life, I'm usually a real good cold reader. I've never not gotten an audition until that day where I did my reading, which was good, and then I saw someone else do their reading, and it was so much better. I was like, okay, then we're bye. Thank you for your time. That was Paul Friedrich, and he took the role, and I got called back a couple of weeks later to help do sound. Why? Because Steve Meyer, the guy who connected me to the interview or to the audition, he knew about my being a musician of some sort. So he said, bring him on. So bam, bam. So now I'm like, well, I've never done music for a play. Is it okay that I've never done music for a play? And they said, okay, yeah, sure. We're no budget here, so what could happen? So I'm like, then we're on. And then there's 3 of us now. None of us are percussionists. We're asked by the directors to create a soundscape that is percussive, non-Western percussion. So no drum set and marching band. No. Something outside the United States. Nothing pre-recorded. All played live. So we began. None of us had instruments. The floor was an instrument. The wall was a legit instrument. So we started ticky-tacking on things, and then suddenly someone said they heard about this African drum called a djembe. So what if it would add to the soundscape? And I said, okay. As it turns out, I got a guy who can get things. And I did. And he was by my alma mater, Illinois State University, where I went to college, where a lot of this all began. My guy I took half my philosophy minor from, he got fired from the school for swearing a lot in class, which was something he did to me. I thought it was hilarious. People got offended. They fired him. He sued. It's a state school. He won. Bam. He's got a store where he's got stuff from all over the world, including Djembe's. So I go back to him, and I see Djembe across the thing. I've never seen it before, at least consciously. I see it across the room. I see this big. I see the whole thing on camera here.
Wow.
About 2 feet tall, about a foot across. And I sit down in front of it just like this, and my hands start just kind of moving like this. And the first thing I either said out loud or thought so loudly that I thought I said it out loud was, oh yeah, I remember this.
Like, past life or something, right?
What did you say? What did you say? I said, I remember this. What do you mean you remember this? And so that I put a pin in that for a couple of decades, but that's how it began. And
how many years ago was that?
1994.
1994. So we're talking 29 years you've been messing around, developing this craft of the djembe.
It started at the age of 27.
Wow.
I had never played percussion before. Keyboard a little bit. I can play some stuff, but I'm not an ist. You know what I mean? A guitarist versus someone who plays guitar, a violinist versus someone who plays violin. There's a difference. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's why I took the term djembist, because I'm like, I think that's not a real word. I made it up. But as a matter of fact, the word for djembe player in the culture from whence it came in West Africa is djembe fola. That's a person who plays djembe. But I took djembist because I thought that made sense.
Wow. Well, advice for the rest of us. I'm a hack on a guitar. I can just make some noise. Ukulele, I can play 4 or 5 songs. I've been playing ukulele for about, 4 years, and I've got 4 or 5 songs down. Still not very good, but what they say is if you spend 10,000 hours on a musical instrument, you'll be an expert. And then I heard something the other day that said basically if you can put in 100 hours just 100 hours in a year, which is only 18 minutes a day. If you can spend 18 minutes a day for a year on your instrument, you'll be in the top 5% of the world. So what's your best advice for people that want to learn to play music, but maybe don't have the time, don't have the skill set, but have the desire? Is it a daily thing? Is it 3 hours at a time, or just a few minutes here and there?
I have some good answers to that. Why? Because I have a lot of students, and they demonstrate to me what's necessary. All right. If I
Mhm.
say if I say practice 18 minutes a day, and you come to well, one of the things I'm going to suggest is finding a teacher, a good teacher, someone you can check in with,
Yeah.
because is your progress. Look, I've had people, they say I practice every day, and the thing that they've practiced is a catastrophe that I have to now undo.
The wrong way. They practice the wrong thing every day.
See, how do you know? And that's
Yeah.
part of what's a big theme of my book is, how do you know you're doing the thing that you think and say you're doing? I say I'm doing this thing, but are you really? And how do you know? I've
Yeah.
been many times I thought I was doing a thing. Downward dog in yoga. I thought I had it until someone adjusted it and showed me that I was, I mean, years. I was not doing it. I thought I was doing it. I was not doing it because I didn't have the witness to show me, what was really going on. So I would say get a guru or get a teacher of some kind. And then when you do practice 18 minutes a day, make it conscious practice that is quality practice. You know
Yeah.
that it's not, you're not guessing. You're not
Yeah.
just doing
Yeah.
it without. And also, a lot of times people have, especially when we're talking about, if it's something, we're talking about generally anything. True. Now, if it's musical, I really suggest to people to have some kind of time reference going when you're practicing, because it can be easy to get in a mode where you think you're playing in time if you're by yourself, but then when you get to any time reference, which includes other people in the classroom, you can't connect at all. You know, all the time you should be exercising what you're doing and the connection to the outside with regard to music. You
Yeah.
know, opinion.
Wow. Love it. Your book cover is one of my all-time favorites. I absolutely love it. But as I look at this cover, there's like two metal spikes sticking out the top.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and they look like, the weapon, so to speak. So tell us real quick, what's the reason behind that?
So they're called either Sese or Kasink Kasink, and I don't have them today because I don't have enough room in this area to reach anything that I need to and have them gone. What are they? They're if you know the word bling, if you use the word bling like fanciness,
Yeah, yeah,
they're bling. They're nothing but bling. But I'll tell you this: sometimes I do a lot of parties and stuff and gigs where I'm walking through crowds. Okay,
yeah.
that's cool. Well, for some reason, when I see people walking through with a violin through a crowd or with a guitar, I don't see people just trying to put their hands on it. But with Djembe, I love Djembe for so many reasons. One of them is because you just want to put your hands on it no matter what. And
I
I
want to
get,
touch it.
I do too. And I'm not even mad at people that want to do that anymore. But what I do is I put those metal things on and it scares people away so that they can, keep their distance. But, I love that is a thing that is a natural aspect of Djembe. It just makes people want to go to it. It
I
just
love
has
it. I
lure.
love it. Well, what is the message you're trying to put out up to the world with this book?
The message I'm trying to put out to the world with this book is a few things. First of all, it's that thing we were just talking about is, are you doing what you think you're doing? Because if you're not doing what you think you're doing, then you're doing something that you're not intending to do, and you're getting good at that thing that's not what you actually have set out to do and believe you're doing in a lot of cases. So there's a big check there. And also to the possibilities of what you can do to make a living and how. I mean, how can you bring something of value to your village? Because something of value to your village should be something we're all paying for. I
Mm,
pay for things that are of value to my village, and we should. That's how this stuff. Oops. That's how this stuff is going. It survives. That's how it needs to be. It needs to be there for us.
mm.
Maladoma Somé, one of my main gurus, he's kind of my non-musical guru. He talks about what is your divine gift to the
Yeah.
village. I mean, the Dagara ethnic group, they dial in, like they'll be like putting their ear on the belly of the woman who's pregnant, talking about, who are you and why are you here? Oh, good, good, good. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. We do need you. Thank you. Okay, good. See you in a minute. It's like that kind of thing.
Wow.
What is the divine gift you're bringing to the village? And that's a thing that has been obscured so much by Western education and indoctrination and all these different things that happen to us living in the West. You know what I mean? It's funny because the people I know that live in West African villages, I don't see them having the necessity to meditate. You know why? Because they're in that natural state of connection. They're
All
in
the time.
nature. They're all the time, 100% of the time. They don't have all this stuff. So, in the people in the West, you have to actively do work to come back to the non distorted state. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I'll say the indigenous self. You know,
Mm.
and that takes work. And if you're not working to do that by some mode, drumming is a good mode to kind of zone in and zone out to the thing. Meditation is a good mode. Anything where you're really having to meditate in that space. It could be painting. It could be, I don't know, anything that's going to achieve that end, you know?
Mm.
So, anyway, so it's possible to live your passion and get
I love
past
it.
but you have to try to get that past the distortions in life to see what it is. What should I be doing here? And how do
Yeah.
I know? How do I
Yeah.
know? Maybe, and there's a curse to being multi-talented because you can do a lot of things very well, but should you be doing it? How do you know if you should be doing it or not? Is there some feeling that you should possess about doing a thing that should in some way indicate and guide you to know if you should be doing this thing or not? Maybe, perhaps. But are we in touch with those feelings at all? We got to take off the layers to the onion to even get to the things that would help us to know if the thing that we're doing is. You see what I'm saying?
I
So,
see it. I see. And I love on the cover of your book, you talk about being a biracial man. I want to ask you, how has that affected you in your life?
well, that's a good question. And so in the early days, like when I was born up until I'm an adopted person at birth. I was adopted into a very loving, racially mixed family. My father was a black man, my mother a white woman, and it was 1966, 67. And so when I was born at a hospital in North Chicago. Never lived there. We lived in the South Side. From 0 to 6, we stayed in the South Side, 8843 South Blackstone. Yo, shout out. But that area in the early 70s, my mother observed that it was going to be dangerous for a light-skinned mixed person. There was a boy that was my shade who was in high school. He was getting the daily beatings, and
Mm.
mom was having none of that. She's like, "No, we're out." So we went out to Downers Grove, which is a suburb of Chicago, and at that point was very much the country. So it's 1972. I'm showing up out there, and I'm the only non-white kid in my entire school, and so uh, some of the kids demonstrated that they had learned racism.
Mm.
And yes, they took it out on me, calling me the N word.
Mm.
And I was a pretty logical kid. I'm like, now let's just wait a second here. I got skin the same shade of yours, and you're calling me that thing that you don't like. And I know I've got different hair. I mean, how far are you going to take this? Is that really how far are you going to reach to be racist?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Wow.
But racism doesn't know that kind of boundary, that kind of subtlety that I'm joking about. But I'm a real light-skinned mixed person, and sometimes it's factored in, sometimes it hasn't. Thankfully, most people don't know. That's the majority of the population.
Yeah.
Some people know and don't care, and then some people know and do care, and in the subsets of that are know and do care, and they don't like it, and they know and they do care and they do like it. You see what I'm saying? So there's all kinds of nuances, and I found out after the fact so many times in my life people that were just like haters of me who
Mm.
later came around and whatever. So anyway, my early life, she moved out to Downers Grove. Racism was there, but it didn't hold me back. La la la. That went all the way through high school with kind of, I don't know, people who I don't want to even get into judgy,
Yeah.
verbal behavior, but
Well, I can see the love and the light from your heart. And so to me, you're just pure love and pure
oh,
light and pure
thank you.
inspiration.
So no, check it out. So that was growing up, and then when I met the Jimbe when I was 27, now You know, sometimes black folks don't notice that I'm mixed. Sometimes because white people have dreadlocks now, sometimes it's not noticed. Well, when I got with my teacher, Yaya Kabo from Senegal, he's very dark. He's like what folks call blue black. He is blacker than black. It's beautiful. And me and him together, we're like Batman and Robin. And we would go everywhere together. And there were a fair amount of haters that were like, who was the pale face next to Yaya? Who's the colonizer that Yaya brought with him? You know? So, you know, but I didn't hear that. Not only because I literally didn't hear it, but I wasn't dialed into that channel. So I kept on going forward. And it's funny, when I started going to Africa a few years after I started Jimbe, in 97, my first trip to Africa was, because I was like, there was a lot of confusion with Jimbe about what it is and who should play it and how it should be played and traditional this and traditional that. And I was like, okay, I tell you what, y'all. I'm going to go to the source, and y'all can have whatever conversation you want to have. I know as little as you do, and I don't know. So I'm going to go find out some stuff. And when I came back from Africa, a lot of views changed. A lot of people changed about how they were looking at me. A lot of people I learned that were haters before are no longer haters, you know, and I don't know. So I still do get it from black and white, you know, but not very often anymore. And it's a funny thing because people with the whole African thing, Jimbe, if I am a white guy doing this thing, I've been called a colonizer online. You know what I'm saying? And here's the deepest irony here. I did a 23andMe DNA analysis, you know, and my white side is French, German, and Great Britain, okay? My black side is literally West African. Talking about places in Guinea, Senegal, like the place where Jimbe is from. Am I the colonizer and the colonized in one form? I mean, when I found that out, I was like, right?
Mind blown.
Okay. You know, and then combine that with some of my meetings with Malidoma Somé, some of my readings that he did for me, said that, like, look, you're the way. Funny thing he said about me, he goes, the way, I always get into an imitation of him when I say it, but he goes, the way you are painted makes you the perfect secret agent for change between black and white.
I love it.
I'm like, no, but you did not just say that. So yeah, and I'm like, bro, I've been feeling like that's been a thing that's on me the whole. But when I got the readings from him in 2014, my whole thing changed because now I had a purpose for doing these things that I was already doing. You know what I'm saying? So I lean into it now. I'll bring the fight. You know, I want people to talk about things related to Africa and African Americans. There's a big chunk in my book about how this African thing and the African American experience is related. And it talks about some truths and it talks about some myths. You know what I mean? And it talks about some realities. But I was the person to bring that, and I'm thankful. Kimosha Murphy helped me out. She's an elder in Chicago in the drum and dance community. Babu Atiba, he's an elder in the African drum and dance community in Chicago. And the great Sule Greg Wilson, the great author who wrote The Drummer's Path so many years ago, helped me to articulate these things. So I didn't go in it alone is what I'm saying. Okay.
Well, a couple of takeaways on my end. I love when they would put their ear to the baby's, the mother's stomach. Yeah. Okay, what's it's kind of like a soul level mission and goal, pretty much.
Absolutely. That's what the Dagara do. That's what Malidoma Somé's people do.
Yeah. And then secondly, I learned my problem with my music is I don't have a teacher, so I'm probably doing it wrong. So I need to get a mentor, a teacher. And
you might be doing it right. You might be doing it right. But if you're not, you're doing it not a lot. You know?
Well, my challenge is I'm left-handed, and all the music is written for right-handed, so we'll see. But we're going to have you do a little djembe beat here in a second. But before we do that, one last question before we get into the music. We're going to do 3 different sounds of music here for you. Okay. And you've covered a little bit of this, but how do you see the world in a spiritual sense?
So I grew up not organized religion. In fact, my company, Holy Goat, was, okay. So I was about 18, and I'm having a conversation with somebody, and I say, I don't know why I said this, but I go, it's like the Father, Son, and the Holy Goat. My friend laughs like you did, and he's like, what did you just say? I said, it's like a Father, Son, and the Holy Goat. What's the Holy Goat? What's the matter with you? They go, what's the matter with me? What's the matter with you? It's not goat, it's ghost, you idiot. What are you talking about? I go, what? What? Like the whole time it's been what? And I was thinking to myself, how did I miss that? And I didn't go to church. I went to church a few times, didn't find that was my thing. And then I realized my biblical education was watching these late night movies on Channel 9 in Chicago where Charlton Heston was parting the Red Sea, you know, and Ben-Hur was doing the chariot races. Man, I challenge you, any of those films, you throw a stone in any direction in any of those films and you're going to hit a goat. They're everywhere. They're like air. You know, so I must have, not knowing it, heard Father, Son, and the Holy Goat. I was like, oh, yeah, Father, Son, and the Holy Goat, obviously. So that was me up until 18. Now, I mention this because later, when I started drumming, we wanted to name the thing that we were doing on Sunday mornings that was kind of like our church when we would go drum. And the person, my friend Pete, said, haunt. The word haunt means normal meeting place. And I hadn't known that word. Like a normal haunt for you is maybe this, you know, particular yoga studio. That's my normal haunt. You can find me there. Okay, I said, oh, I like that a lot. And then I said, haunt of the Holy Goat. That's what's going to be, haunt of the Holy Goat. And that's where Holy Goat Percussion was born. So now I say that because I grew up not attached to organized religion. Yeah. But I have a spiritual sense kind of naturally that I couldn't really articulate. Now, when I got with Malidoma Some in 2014 and he did these readings on me that were the first things that changed everything, part of what he said to me, makes me get half choked up, was that you're not alone. The ancestors have been guiding you since the beginning. He's like, why do you think you could just drum? You didn't learn how to drum. You could just drum. And I was like, yeah, that is a thing that I've often wondered about. He's like, do you feel like at any point your hands are being guided and you're witnessing them? It's like they're not your hands. And I said, yeah, since that first time and frequently, all the time. All the time. So often, you know. And he's like, that's because that's what's happening there. That's why that's happening. And they've been using you. And he's like, the djembe for you is not a thing where you're playing fast and nice and people enjoy it because you're an entertainer. You're not an entertainer. He said to me, you're a man of medicine with a tool of the ancestors, and your charge is to channel healing energy through the djembe. And when he said that, it was like, oh, that's what that all, why the whole thing. So that's part of where I'm coming from with the djembe. And so in terms of my spiritual mindset, it's ancestor based, you know?
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm going to share this thing real quick. In Hawaii, we call it the Kapuna. So here's just a little one-liner that kind of reinforces what you're saying. It says, they asked the Kapuna, what's the greatest bit of advice we should learn? And the Kapuna replied, that you have the strength and mana of Kapuna who came before you, and their prayers still protect you. That everything you need is within you, but you will meet a world that will try and make you forget that.
Oh, hell.
And I think that's exactly what you're talking about. So let's dive in. Give us your first little djembe beat, and we'll do two more folk tales after this later in the interview, but give us your first little take.
Okay, right on. Here we go for djembe. And as I'm doing that, and if it sounds like shite, you gotta let me know, because that means I have to fix something on this side, which I know what to fix. All right. Forgetting. Woo! Forgetting. Yeah. So Malidoma's Dagara ethnic group, they talk about that too. How you begin forgetting after you're born, you know? And the whole idea of how remembering relates to forgetting, okay? See what I mean? So we're remembering because we've forgotten our natural state of being, our natural state of divine guidance. about 20 minutes. This is one of my African-esque folk tales that original compositions based on my experiences with Mamadi Keita, my experiences in Africa, in a place where folk tales are not quite the thing in this exact part of West Africa where Jimbe is from. In the beginning was the music, then the drum. In the beginning, in the Mande, West Africa, there was the music, then there was the Jimbe, Fanta and Dauda, the story of the women and the new moon, of the heartbeat, of the original heartbeat of one ancient culture in Africa. It was the 13th century in a place known as the Malian Empire in West Africa. The sun peeked over the savannah as Fajimba. He's a master hunter. He set out to the bush. He journeyed past a field where the farmer and his workers were just arriving. He could hear Fanta singing and clapping music, encouraging the farmers to make their work more of a dance. See, the women of the village had realized that it was always better to work with music, and had created rhythms, clapping on their hands, movements to dance, and songs to sing for every occasion. Dauda was a blacksmith. And blacksmiths not only forge metal, they make knives for the cooks, they make tools for the farmers, they make weapons for the warriors, but they also are known to dabble in otherworldly pursuits, sometimes called fetish activity. Fetishers are what in West Africa are the people that have command of such otherworldly things. And Dauda, well, one day he was carving out a mortar. They used the mortar and pestle to make foodstuffs in West Africa. And as he was carving it out, his carving tool broke through the bottom of the vessel. In this moment, he had a vision of a skin on a hollowed out mortar. Swirling, diffuse beams of colors, light, and energy radiated from this image, sending ripples of sound that transformed into dancing images. Kurunin and the great spirits that protect the village were awoken by this energetic shift, as were the ancestors. Knowing an object of great power was now in the process of creation. Jimbe, 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 was all he heard. I'll stop it right there.
Wow. So, amazing. Amazing. I hope you'll do another one for us here in a few moments.
Oh yeah, I'm going to be doing, I'll probably do a full one next.
All right. Our guest today is Taylor. His book is titled Remembering Your Ancestral Fire, a biracial man's unlikely journey of self-discovery, heeding the call of the Djembe. For more information, you can go see him online at holygoat.com. Again, holygoat.com. So I want to ask you this question as we continue. What's the biggest life change you've experienced that is a direct result of your relationship with your Djembe?
The biggest life change that I've experienced that's the result of my relationship with Djembe. Wow. Okay, so in my life, I have BD and AD. I have before Djembe and after Djembe. Yeah. So, the biggest life change. There's nothing I've wanted to do as much as this. I just want to do it all the time, and when I realized that that was the case, I was like, well, if all the time includes making money to pay the rent, then you're going to have to do something that includes that,
Yeah.
so but this thing, and then part of in my beginnings, I was getting school programs and stuff through the Old Town School. Well, I got my job at the Old Town School of Folk Music because my teacher didn't have his green card at the time, and I was his one student. I met him, Yaya Cabo. This was kind of crazy. So I started Jimbe in '94. Started my first CD, recording a CD with a friend of mine who we bought a little studio together. I mean, when I say that, I mean we bought equipment and got in his basement. And started recording a record 6 months after I picked up the drum. I picked up the drum because I was playing in a play, and we practiced a lot. So I got a lot of playing time in those first, few months. And then a year and a half after I start Jimbe, I meet my first teacher. I was doing a drum circle, facilitating a drum circle in Chicago at a guitar center when it was on Belmont and Clark. And someone in the group said, hey, would you want to... are you looking for an African teacher for that instrument? And I'm like, teacher? I love it. Yes. I mean, it hadn't occurred to me that there were teachers around for this thing, right? And he said that, and I was like, oh, wow, yeah. So I got a number, and then bam, bam, I'm together with my first African teacher, Yaya Cabo. I'd actually met my first teacher 3 months before that in Oakwood Farms. And Jackie, who's on the call right now, were you there at that point? Yeah, 95, yo, what's up? So that's right. That was a huge year. So I met my first teacher there. His name was Michael Marcus. That's the first time I heard someone make the djembe speak like that. So by the time I met Yaya, that was my first African teacher. I didn't know there were Africans in Chicago teaching this instrument. So I went and got with him, and that whole thing was like, I was loving djembe to begin with, and it was taking over my life. And then when the tradition of djembe came into my life with Michael and Yaya, it was like a big door in the floor opened up, and I'm like, wait, there's a whole nother layer to this, a deeper, and it just, you couldn't even see the bottom. So how did the djembe change my life? Well, it just occupied like every space in it. And and if that's going to be true, if you're going to let something do that, you got to find a way to make money off of it in a good way. I say in a good way. That's, I've been asked to do things that I don't want anyway. But you got to do things in a good way if it's a thing that is a thing that motivates your heart and you want to do. If it's a thing you love, you should do good things to spread that love, because it's almost like, look, I love to do this thing, and I'm going to do this thing, and you're going to be in the presence of me doing this thing. You're loving doing this thing. I'm loving doing this thing. That's how it travels, right? That's how it gets transmitted. That's how we change the world. Am I right?
Absolutely. Well, talk about some of your trips to Africa.
Okay, good. I answered that question, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. You sure did.
Making
I
sure.
want to know about like your trips to Africa. How have they welcomed you? Like they look at this guy like, wait a minute, maybe he's not from our local village. Maybe he doesn't look like us. But then you show up with your djembe and you start playing, and I can only imagine their jaws are dropping like, holy cows, he's better than any djembe player we've ever seen.
Well,
so let's put experiences.
Okay. No. That's so funny. Well, let's put it in context. So all of my trips to Africa have been with notable master drummers who I've gone with as a thing with them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Guinea's not the kind of place where you can just go there and show up. I mean, theoretically, you can do that. I have some friends who have done that, and woo, you don't want to do that generally in Guinea. So you have to go there with a plan, with people who are going to meet you there, and people are going to make sure the food is sorted and make sure you're safe. So anyway, I'm there in a study camp with 30 people from around the world, and so
this is in Guinea. This is in Guinea, right?
Guinea, West Africa. So if you talk about what the areas of the countries were determined by European colonization, mainly that happened at the Berlin Conference in 1884, 1885. So those country lines thereafter, well, the Malian Empire predates those country lines by like at least 500 years, 400 or 500 years. So if you talk about where Djembe is from, it's not from any of those countries. But areas of those countries that touch the area where the Malian Empire was and where Djembe was from within the Malian Empire include a big chunk of northeast Guinea, some called Upper Guinea or Haute Guinea, a pretty small area of lower Mali. Mali's huge, but desert Mali, not Djembe. You know what I mean? Even south and west of Bamako, if you know the geography enough. But Mali, those are the two main areas where Djembe, if you're talking about parts of countries. And then you got maybe some Ivory Coast, maybe some Burkina Faso, maybe a little bit of Senegal in the very eastern Tambacounda region. But otherwise, it's not generalized anywhere over Africa, you know. So that being said, Guinea is one of the places that you would want to go if you were going to study traditional Djembe. There's a lot of notable masters that are from Guinea particularly. Mali's great too. I'm planning to go to Mali this January and get some Mali instruction and flavoring, because that's a whole nother, it's like a different kind of cooking, you know, a different kind of food, where it's the flavors of the same thing are different, you know. I love it. Anyway, so 97, 98, and 4 times in the 2000s up to 2007. Over 10 years, I went 6 times. And the last time I went, and you know, look, they look at people, they meaning the Africans, my master teachers, they look at people who love Djembe as people who love Djembe. And they love Djembe. So they're like, okay, we're together. We're the same in that way. Let's go. They don't care if you're black, you're white, male, female, transgender, whatever pronoun. No, they don't care about that stuff. All right, with my masters with Djembe. All right, you come to Djembe with an open heart. Djembe opens itself to you. And so in Africa, studying with the masters, they're totally colorblind. It's all good, you know. I will say that sometimes in the United States, it's not quite so much that way. You know, and that's the thing I cover in the book. And it's like, it's not without its reason. You know what I mean? So African Americans and Africans have a very different experience. You know, they're only related. I mean, if you talk about what Don Miguel Ruiz, the 4 Agreements, Mastery of Love, what he calls domestication, which is our socialization in life. Like after we're born, what happens to us? You know, Africans and African Americans, they don't have anything similar that way. They have different, you know, connections in a DNA way, but, you know, anyway, they love people who love Djembe, you know. They even knew that I was what they call métis. French have a word called métis. That means you have a black and a white parent. But that was the thing they just observed. They weren't hating on it. They weren't having no problem. You know, in fact, what I saw mostly is the African masters treating African Americans, mixed people like me, and white folks, and anyone else who's in between or this way or that way of it, the same.
Yeah. Wow. Love it. Love it. Well, let's dive in and let's do another folk tale. What do you got for us?
Okay. So this one, and my main, I have about 6 or 7 folk tales I've written, but there's the main 3 that are kind of like, I mean, Trinity has a lot to do with a lot of things, all right? Look at Schoolhouse Rock. 3 is a magic number. You know that. Man and a woman had a little baby. Oh, it's good stuff. Now, this trilogy, what I'm talking about, is origin, then discovery of self, and then plurality. So origin was what I was just, the chunk of the story that I just was started. Now, we're talking about the instrument, like self and other, okay? So this is called Hand of the Master. And it is the story of anyone who's tried to study Djembe. Anyone who's studied Djembe, including me, had the same frustrations that this young one had. It was excuse me. Pardon me. It was a long time ago. It was the 13th century in the Malian Empire. And there was a young one who loved to play Djembe. All day they played and played and played. But no matter how long they played, No matter how many hours they toiled in the savannah sun playing, they could not find the sound of the master's hand in theirs. So that young one said, well, I just don't know what it could be. I play and I play and I play and I just cannot find the sound of the master's hand in mine. What could it be? Well, I know what, since it can't be me, then it must be this drum. This drum. What's wrong with this drum that I can't find the sound of the master's hand in mine? Oh, I know. It must be too tall. Too tall. That's right. This drum is too tall. That's why I can't find the sound of the master's hand in mine. I'm going to get a short drum. Then I will find the sound of the master's hand in mine. So that young one set about to find a short drum. And they found a short drum, barely an ankle's height. And on that short drum, they played and played and played. But alas, they did not find the sound of the master's hand in theirs. That short drum just did not do the trick, but I'm convinced that it must be this drum that's the problem, and that's why I can't get the sound of the master's hand in mine. What must it be? Obviously, okay, the short to do is too short to begin. I must need a tall drum. This drum is too short to begin with. I will find a tall drum, and then I will find the sound of the master's hand in mine. So that young one set about to find a tall drum. And they found the tallest drum in all the surrounding villages. So tall, in fact, that young one had to get a ladder to get up on top of this tall drum. So that young one got that ladder and got on top of this tall drum and played and played and played. But alas, they did not find the sound of the master's hand in theirs. Well, I don't know what it could be. The young one began to be very, very frustrated and got her face turned into a fist face with frustration. I don't know what it could be, but just then, that young one had a very, very naughty thought. I will steal my master's drum. Then I will find the sound of the master's hand in mine. So that young one waited until the night of the late of the night of the night of the late of the night of the late of the night. And they snuck into their master's T-bow. That's the thatched roof, mud brick, kind of little houses you see in West Africa. So they went into their master's T-bow. And as quiet as the night herself, lifted the master's Jimbe and carried the master's Jimbe out of the T-bow and went across the Bara, that's the village center, and past the baobab tree that looked over the village, and past the boulder. And sitting behind the boulder, that young one played and 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 played. And oh, but alas, it still did not find the sound of the master's hand in theirs. But just then, the master was awoken by the sound of his own hand speaking in a language he did not understand. How can this be? So the master got out of his T-bow. He was looking for the sound. He went across the Bara. He was looking for the sound. He went past the baobab tree looking for the sound. And looking for the sound, he looked behind the boulder to see that young one with his drum. Why have you not asked me to play my drum? Oh, Master, sorry. I just wanted the master hand in my hand, and I just a tall one, the short one. I'm sorry. So the master went back to his T-bow, and he got a misshapen, dusty old, stanky, flea-bitten djembe. And he brought it to that young one. You must play this djembe and this djembe alone until you find the sound of my hand in yours. Well, that young one took that djembe, and they left the village. And many moons passed, many harvests passed, many transitions passed, many naming ceremonies passed, until one morning, it was so early that the sun herself had not yet risen. The master was awoken by the sound of his own hand. How can this be? So the master got up. He left his T-bow. He was looking for the sound. He went across the bara, looking in every direction, looking for the sound. He went past the baobab tree because he was looking for the sound. He went behind the boulder. He found nothing. But that morning, the master had been given a gift by the moon. And that was just enough illumination to see that on the outskirt of the village, on the small hill, there was someone who looked like someone playing a stinky, misshapen, dusty, moth-eaten. Well, that's the young one. The master walked up the hill and approached the young one. How is it that you have found the sound of my hand in yours? Well, master, well, first of all, thank you. But to answer your question, I understand now that it was always me and never the drum. And okay, so what did I do? So I practiced, and then I had patience with myself, and I practiced, and I had more patience, and then I practiced, and I had more patience, and I played some more, and I had more patience, and I asked some people that had really good sound, and I asked them what they were doing, and they helped me to see some things that I thought I was doing that I really wasn't doing, and that really helped me a lot. And well, thank you, master. Pleased, the master went back to his T-bow, got his djembe, and he joined the young one on the hill, and they drummed together as the morning sun chased away the night.
Wow. Wow. I love it. I love it. I love it.
That's a shortened version of kind of the hit single of my stories. I've got a video for it on YouTube. I do it with kids all the time. In that area where you're describing, what kind of drum is the problem, tall, short, if I get with kids, I can go through, we go into an exercise in English and about descriptive words and stuff, and they give me all the different kinds of way, like, it's too hairy, it's too farty, it's too, too tie-dye, I love it, so it can turn into a really great interactive experience with kids.
Well, I could resonate with you because I've gone through a handful of ukuleles. Oh, that one doesn't sound very good. Oh, that one's not very good either. And it turns out it was just me all along.
Yes, that is so often the case. User error. Yes. User
error. Hey, real quick, on that drum, I noticed when you drum really close to your stomach, it makes a really amazing sound.
Like a higher sound, right?
That, yes. The closer that you get to you, the sound is like it doesn't sound like anything our ears hear. Like the main drum, we hear that sound on a drum. Yeah, but when you get close to your stomach, what is it about that?
So with djembe, with traditional djembe, at least if you study Guinean style, you're gonna have bass and then what they say tone or teen or slap or tan. So 3 notes that you mainly use to create djembe rhythms. So when I go,
Yeah.
see that?
It's that third sound, that third key or whatever. To me, that's like the most musical to my ears. I love that more than anything.
Excellent. That's
Because I don't hear that often. You don't hear it all.
no. Djembe is a weird instrument because you can get a lot of sounds out of one instrument. You don't have to have a whole lot of different, like a drum set has a whole lot of different drums to
Yeah.
get sounds. You know what I mean? Djembe is unique. Conga's that way, where it's another drum part of the African diaspora, but you can get a lot out of the one thing, and I prefer that whole kind of mindset. You know?
Yeah, I love it. Well, we're kind of running out of time, but I want to jam in some a few more things here before we finish up. What impacts do you have? And we're going to go another 15 minutes or so because I want to do another folklore. But a couple more questions before we do another folktale. What impacts do you hope that your book will have?
What impact do I hope that my book will have? One of the impacts that I hope my book will have is to demonstrate to people, if you think what crazy idea you have can't be done for a living, there's a dude with a djembe making a living right here. And there's ways to do it. You know what I mean? And part of the ways to do it involve, look, spirituality. You asked about spirituality earlier. Some folks have spirituality that's different than mine, okay? There's a lot of different spiritual ways. It's all kind of, when you look at it, it's what invisible beings do you believe in and help and trust to guide you, you know? I always recommend dialing into your divination, your divine gifts. Now, I've seen some different ideas that may go against harmony and peace. So I'm here to say that I don't feel like spiritual beliefs that advocate violence against anybody or anything, or the eradication of the other for the existence of it. I think those are fundamentally, that's a flawed thing. And maybe some people will be mad at me for that, and I don't care. You know? So I hope that this book illustrates to people what's possible. I hope that it inspires people to dial into their indigenous selves, their undomesticated self. If you can get that, and you're going to have to do something to get to that place because it's got layers all over it. Layers that you inherited. You didn't even ask for it. You were issued them at birth, you know? So if you, and how do you get there? You get there by different practices that will take you there, you know? And I can say that, you know, like Tai Chi, meditation, chanting, Buddhists got a good thing going on with that. You know, for me, drumming does it. You know, I have a thing called the drum meditation, which, you know, if you have trouble meditating, I challenge you to listen to what I'm doing, because I will do things that are so repetitive that you ever look at a spot on a wall for long enough where it just disappears? If you haven't done that, I recommend doing that. That's what I do musically when I do my drum meditation, because my goal there is to trance you out, is to get you to go into that state, that's that altered state. And if you're listening to me drum, that's not it. I've failed if I'm doing stuff too interesting. So I'll play the same thing for 5 minutes straight. You know what I mean? And if, as a drummer, if you've ever done that, and I mean the exact, I don't mean a thing that's kind of, no, the exact same thing 5 minutes straight, you got to set a timer. You'll lose your mind. You'll think that you've been drumming for a week, you know? And the people in your presence probably will just kind of, the eyes will just, you know, it's powerful like that. It's not the only modality that can get you there. But I can say that most modalities that get you there involve repetition.
By the way, when you're doing a concert, what are the length of some of your songs? The longest song or folklore that you might go? How long would you go on a song?
20 minutes, a single piece. Like the first, the one I'm going to do a little bit of right now clocks in at about 20 minutes. We're not going to, you know, I'm going to just do the first few minutes.
Very good. And also, I think I have your next book title. I've never heard this phrase before, but you
That.
just said this. I think your next book title could be "What Invisible Beings Do You Believe in?" And what a way to open a conversation with all humanity. I think that book title, you should go out and get that .com, because I think that "What Invisible Beings Do You Believe in?" .com would be a spectacular way to share the love of the world.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
before we do this last folktale,
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
a couple of things I want to ask you. Have you met your biological family? And if so, what was that like?
Good one. Yes. At the age of 30, I met my biological family. Um, it was important. And this is unique. Sylvia Taylor was my adoptive mother, and it was important to her that at some point she told me I was adopted. I can't even remember when she told me because I was so young. All right. The way she presented it was like, look, we adopted you because we could take care of you and we'll love you in ways that your parents who gave you up, they just were not in a situation where they could do that. And I'm like, hey, that seems reasonable. Win-win for me, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I grew up. And then it was important for her that I actually find them. So she helped find them, which is very unusual as adoptive parents go. And so we did a thing and went through the adoption agency, and bam, bam, letters were thing. And then suddenly I was sitting with my biological mother, you know.
Mm.
And my biological father had transitioned to being an ancestor at that point. Some people say died. He died in 1987. This meeting I'm telling you about happened in about 1999.
Mm. Wow.
So getting to know them was, I mean, I was 30 some years old. I was a fully formed person. I was 6 years into Jimbe, which, you might say I was 6 years old in a lot of ways in my life, because I was totally reborn when that took over my life. So I was in a thing. I wasn't someone who was like, not whole or didn't feel that way. You know what I mean? So it was cool. It was like I was seeing another aspect to my existence that why, I can see why my musical side is my white side. There are a whole
Yeah.
bunch of my athletic side is my black side. I've got some other things that I can map to my white side and other things I can map directly to my black side. My father, I guess I'm very much a lot like my father. When I met my paternal grandmother, biological paternal grandmother, I guess she's real talkative. So she's there, and a bunch of the cousins and stuff are there because they're all like tripping because my dad's name is David Day. And there had been various rumor about my existence and stuff like that, and I'm coming down to see the family. And Tootie, who her name was, everyone's tripping because, oh, Tootie ain't even talking. She must be really tripping because she's not talking, you know. And then everything I would do, they'd be like, oh, look at that, that's just like David. Oh, look at that, just like that. I'm like, man, I'm just everything I'm doing here. I'm like, and so I guess Tootie was tripping because I was so like David that it was messing with her. So.
Wow.
So there, for whatever that's worth, I had to introduce myself to my paternal biological grandfather. He didn't know I existed. He knew
Mm.
about my half siblings that were younger than me, but he didn't know about me. So that's an example as to how piecemeal the whole thing was. I mean, my biological mother, Audrey, who I'm still in touch with today, she's going to see this interview, and she was sent away when she got pregnant to have me in another place so no one would see. You see, it was like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Black boy, white girl, 1967 in Missouri. I mean, it was a thing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
gee.
Yeah. It's funny because when I was a young boy in our church, my mother and father would be foster parents to these pregnant young teenage girls. And I'd be living my life at 4, 5, 6 years old. And all of a sudden, there's this pregnant woman living in her house for like 3 months. I'm like, who's she? What is this?
She was, she was
And
one of
there's
those.
5 or 6 of them over the years. And I'm like, wow, my parents just had so much love that they welcomed in their home. So real quick, we're going to finish on this. And I can't wait to hear this last folk tale.
Are we going to do the question and answer afterward?
Yeah, we're going to do a Q&A after that as well. So I want to ask, how can people get a hold of you if they want to hire you as a teacher, if they want to hire you as a coach, if they want to buy a copy of your book? Tell us the best way for people to reach you and how they can support you in those areas.
Holygoat.com. That website will take you to everything. HOLYGOAT.com.
And then you do professional speaking, you do professional music, you do all of the above. You can bring this into corporate events and do all kinds of team building stuff, all kinds of good stuff.
Lots of good things I could say yes to about how I bring the same product to a different context, and it brings medicine to that context. You know,
everything is at holygoat.com. Can you teach me to be a better ukulele player?
I get a lot of non-djembe players coming to my class to be better at ukulele or trombone or whatever, because you can practice musical feel with djembe in a very good way. And then when you get back to your other instruments, you've got a whole nother rhythmic situation at your disposal.
I love it. I love it. All right. So go to Holy Goat, not Holy Ghost, but holygoat.com. Pick up a copy of Taylor's book. We've got the holiday season right around the corner. It makes for a great Christmas gift. And buy multiple copies. The book is amazing. You're going to love it. If you've benefited from this message today, as we all have, share his message. Get it out there. Let's get him some more engagements. And wow, I'm so impressed. Okay, so let's finish up. Any folk tale that you want. It's all yours. Go right ahead.
May the goat be with you. I want to put that. All right. So now this last one, this is the third one of the big three. The first, origin. Second, duality. Third, plurality. My teacher's name is Mamadi Keita, my teacher of djembe, because Malidoma was my kind of spiritual teacher. So Mamadi, he's got his own story of amazing why he is the most widely known master in the world and what he did to do that. Well, suffice it to say, I spent 20 years with him, and a lot of where I am as a musician has a lot to do with his influence on me. There's a traditional rhythm I learned from him called Mori Bayasa. Now, when you talk about traditional djembe rhythms, you're talking about a thing with a name, a thing with an ethnic group that from whence it came, a thing that geographically where it comes from, and what purpose was it played for. So that's the basic oral history that if you're teaching djembe, traditional djembe, all the masters that I've studied with, it's important to them, so it's important to me that oral history is carried along with the teaching of the music. So Mori Bayasa is a rhythm by the Malinke ethnic group played in Upper Guinea, West Africa. And why is Mori Bayasa played? It's played when a woman's wish is granted. Some context on this. It's the kind of vow that a woman should take only once or twice in her life in the village as a Malinke woman. It's something that's so heavy, so profound, like, well, let's say your brother goes away and you don't know if he's ever going to come back, and 5 years goes past and you're bummed out, and 7 years goes past and you're like, oh my God, and 10 years and you're like, okay, I'm going to wish that my brother return, and if my wish is granted, I vow to dance Mori Bayasa. Okay, so that's the meaning of this whole thing. So this is an original creation of mine, and this is actually based on true circumstances. The story of Mori Bayasa, Mamadi and his older sister, Kadia. Once there was a girl named Kadia. She lived in a small village in Upper Guinea, West Africa called Balandugu Jomawanya. Well, one day in August of 1959 seemed like any other day. The Tubaninlu Konolu cuckooed, those are the birds, and the rhythm of the Kolon Kalan, the mortar and pestle, colored the morning air. This day was the day one of the greatest djembe masters the world would ever know would be born. This would be Balandugu's first meeting with Kadia's last-born brother, Mamadi Keita. Kurunin, where the spirits that protect Balandugu live, had already known Mamadi, for it is from the spirit world that new babies arrive into this manifest reality. Kurunin saw in Mamadi the spirit of the great Malinke king Sunjata Keita, the king of kings, called him Mansa Ba, from the original Malian empire around the 12th or 13th century. But instead of defending the culture of the Malian Empire with a bow, spear, and sword, Mamadi would use other means to defend his culture. Mori bayasa, mori bayasa, afo, mori bayasa, mori bayasa, yo so yasa. Everyone noticed that Mamadi cried incredibly hard at birth. The village fetisher told the parents not to worry, that this child had a great future ahead of him. Furthermore, the fetisher prophesied that this child would be known not only to his village, but all surrounding villages. That he would be known in all of his country. That his name would be known all over the continent of Africa. That the entire world would know his greatness. But also that his parents would not taste the fruit of his fame. Mori bayasa, mori bayasa, afo, mori bayasa, mori bayasa, yo so yasa. See, Mamadi began drumming on pots and pans as soon as he could pick up a wooden spoon. His mother said, "This boy will be a great Djembe Fola." See, the Djembe Fola's job is to accompany the work, rituals, and celebrations that would happen in the village. The Djembe Fola's job is to make the Djembe speak. Well, soon, around the age of 5, Mamadi was taken to the village Djembe Fola. His name was Karikajen Konde. He was to be initiated into the 7 secrets of the Djembe. Because Mamadi was such a naturally gifted drummer, he took the nickname Nankama, which means he was born for it. Mamadi and Karinkajan would drum for the tilling of the soil, for the planting of the seeds, for the naming ceremonies and initiations. They would play for the full moons, for the important people, for masks, for fetishers, and of course, for celebration. Mori bayasa, mori bayasa, fo, mori bayasa, mori bayasa, yo so yasa. One day, Kadia had been called out to the fields to help with harvesting. And when she returned, she went looking for Mamadi to help her bring water from the well. Well, Mamadi was nowhere to be found. And as she looked around, she noticed that the feeling in the village had become distressed. Many worried, confused expressions on many faces. Soon she heard that her brother, Mamadi, was no longer there. Some people from the government showed up and asked for Mamadi, and then he was gone. This is a day that Kadia will never forget. She wondered aloud, frightened and astonished. Why would they take Mamadi away? Why would they take my little brother away? She wondered if she ever would see him again. And that's about a third of the way through the story.
Yeah. Wow. So, love it. Love it. Love it. Can you share us real quickly, verbally, how the story goes and how it ends?
What happens is he was taken by the government because government of Guinea, West Africa, because they were putting together a performance ensemble that was multi-ethnic group. All right. So in Guinea, there's probably close to, I think there's 23 different ethnic groups in the small country of Guinea. And they don't generally do things together. They do things separately. They have their own areas, and they're not, they're not mad at each other that I know of, but they're doing their things separate, So what Sekou Touré, the person who took over after the French left in 1958, he was the first dictator of Guinea. He was a huge patron of the arts. He also had some other aspects to him which are less lovely, but let's talk about the good stuff right now. He was a huge patron of the arts, and he wanted to put together a national touring group that took all these different disparate traditions from the different ethnic groups all around Guinea and put them into a big performing ensemble. And because Mamadi was so well known in his very remote part of Upper Guinea, West Africa, where it's more like the desert than it is the jungle in this area, because the dividing region between the Sahara, which is the top of Africa, right, and sub-Saharan Africa, is called the Sahel, Sahel. And the Sahel is where it's, depending on where you are in the Sahel, you might be in a very desert environment, and that's where Mamadi's from. It's very rural, very kind of desert-ish, not desert, but savanna, I guess they would call it. And he was already famous at the age of 13, 12, 13. He was famous for being an amazing drummer, so much so that someone from the government had seen him at one of his shows. When we went up in 2007, I had the honor of being asked to be one of the people touring with Mamadi to go back to his village to play this music for his village. Because why? The traditions of Djembe. Look, a lot of old traditions around the planet are dying off.
Yeah.
Every day languages die in some ancient forest that no one's speaking them anymore. You know what I mean? Traditions are not always carried forward. Well, with Djembe, that has happened in where Mamadi's village and around, where Mamadi's village is. The traditions of Djembe have largely not been continued. So he's trying to, fix that. He doesn't want that. He's like, please, don't do that. So he brings back a group of performers to perform in his village and surrounding villages. And that was 2007, and it was an amazing, I can't tell you how much, but that's in the book. But the reason...
The sister got to see her brother again play.
Yeah. I got to meet again. But yeah, I got to meet Kadia. I'm so glad to say that. I got sidetracked. I started thinking about that, and I blasted out what I was going to say. You want to hear a story now? Or no, are we done with the stories?
Go ahead, quick story, and then we'll finish up. I got a
wait. No. You were asking how it ended. Yeah. Okay. So they took. Okay, sorry. Thank you. Train of thought. So they took him, and he went to go study in the capital city, not study, be trained, okay? And that kept him away. And then he started touring globally, and that kept him away. And then when he was even home in the capital city, Conakry, there was a rule that he couldn't travel, no one in the group could travel more than a couple of 100 kilometers in case they got a call to go on tour again. And his place is way far, like way past that. So he couldn't get home for a lot of reasons for a lot of time. So Kadia, at some point, wishes her brother to return. And after 26 years, he leaves a 13-year-old boy. He comes back a 39-year-old man, having achieved all the fame that the fetishers prophesized. And he comes back to his village in 89, 90, after having left in 63. And that's the end of the story when he comes back, and she dances Mori Bayasa because she has to fulfill her vow now because her wish has been granted.
Wow. When you started this story, I thought it was a folklore. I thought it was just a make-believe. And knowing that this is a true story, it's even more powerful.
Right.
We're going to open this up to Q&A here in a few moments. I want to thank you. You've inspired me. I'm going to get that ukulele out, and I'm going to keep working on the hands, and it doesn't matter if it's tall or short. Wide, thin. It's in the hands. It's not in the instrument. But this show is called the Patrick and Mary Unstoppable Author Interview, based on our producer, Mary West, whose middle name is Unstoppable. We call her MUW, Mary Unstoppable West. So I want to ask you, Taylor, how do you define the word unstoppable?
The word unstoppable, I define the word as unstoppable as if you want to do something and there's no road to get there, you build the freaking road. You clear the path and build the road to get there. If there's no road, you build the road to get there. I built the road to get where I'm at. I'm making a living doing Djembe. That is not something that was on the radar when I was growing up. Let me tell you that. So build the road.
And the asphalt to build that road is your passion. You talked about taking your passion and making that your profession. You were so loving what you did that you had to figure out a way to make it a living. So that's your advice to us, is take our passion, turn it into our profession, build the road, and great things will happen.
How do you turn it into a profession? talk to people like Patrick, talk to people like me, you know what I mean? Because there are answers to that question, even though you might think there's no way. Talk to us. Talk to somebody. Find somebody to help you get advice. Seek advice.
Very good. Well, Taylor, thank you so much. This was amazing, spectacular. I'm going to put this in the speaker view or audience view, gallery view. And then who's got questions, comments, thoughts? Just go ahead and raise your hand and then share any thoughts or comments or questions that you have for Taylor. Who's going to be first? Let's go, Mary West. Go right ahead, Mary.
Thank you, Taylor. This was so wonderful, and I love the sound of the drums, and I love your stories. And what I picked up, you mentioned be sure to get a teacher so that you're not practicing the wrong thing, and that's great advice. Thank you for mentioning that today. So thanks again for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, let's go to Valerie and then Dr. Renee. Go ahead, Valerie.
I just want to say thank you. That was very inspirational. Loved your drums, loved the story, love your story about your life and how you got into the music and everything. Definitely going to get your book, and it was awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Renee, go ahead.
Thank you, Patrick. Excellent. This is a spectacular interview. Taylor, this was so interesting. There was a song long time ago with the same drums that was a rock and roll song, and it's just a guy who sounds just like that telling a story, and I forgot what it was. You just heard it a lot.
If you remember, please send it through the pipes. I want to know what that is.
Yeah, it was very popular. Everybody knows it. It was kind of like that song. Now, I didn't get high when I was in school, but people who did, you would hear this song on the radio.
Well,
bum, 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 and it goes kind of like that. I forgot what it's called.
Hold on. Let me do a thing and see if this is it. Is it Jingo, Jingo ba ba go ba ba go ba ba go ba. Is that?
Okay, that's Santana, but that's the Santana combination song. That's one of them. There was another one who actually said words, but the one you're saying is from the Abacus album.
Yeah.
Santana.
You know who actually wrote that tune?
No, was it Carlos Santana and somebody else? Or you
Baba
did?
Both, no, it's funny. No, I'm not that old, but I would be looking good if I was 80 years old, wouldn't I be? But Babatunde Olatunji wrote that tune. And then Santana adapted it, and Santana's version is far more well known than Olatunji's version. But Olatunji was the first person that had the first record of African drumming, like LP I'm talking about, in 1959 called Drums of Passion. And I always recommend it to anyone who's a fan of African drumming. That is a great record. It's not a Jimbe record. It's kind of like African music for the masses. He's a Nigerian. And, you know, his story is interesting because he really wasn't a musician. He was an academic that came over here to study, and he can sing, and he had some songs. He saw some people, I think in Central Park in New York, playing African drums and said, hey, you African Americans playing the African drums. I'm an African. I got songs. You want to do a thing? And so they did, and it was great. So that's Drums of Passion. But yeah, anyway, so if you remember what that was, please send it to me.
Okay, I definitely will. I love the thing about the three things you said, something like the three pillars of life: the origin, self, of other, or something, and polarity. Was that the word? Polarity.
It was origin, and you could say origin, singularity, duality, which is duality, self and other.
Singularity is number two.
Yeah, I'd say I'm making this up, so but single, and then dual. Dual, self and other. That's hand of the master, and then plurality, self and others.
Self and others. Oh,
yeah,
polarity, not polarity.
Right, right, plurality, plural.
Oh, plural. Oh, plurality. Yeah. Okay, got that. And I love this word, the blue black. I never heard of that before. I just love everything about cultures and things like that. I love the way that you said a lot of traditions are going away, whether it's language or food. People forget to teach their children something that their grandmother or great grandmother taught them to cook a certain way, or
Right.
languaging or traditions of holidays or whatever it is. It does go away because too many people are on their cell phones and not paying attention to their family, or they're not eating together at dinner time. I mean, this is like basic traditions worldwide, not just American traditions where everyone should eat together every night, but also in the entire world. I love the holygoat.com instead of Holy Ghost. There, because when I was little too, there were certain songs like 2-ton tomato, 1-ton tomato. It was not 1-ton tomato, it's one something tomato, but it's not a
Oh,
tomato. Okay, it's like a Spanish song, 1-ton tomato, but it's not a tomato, and I don't know what it is. It's a Spanish thing, and so I love the Holy Goat, love that. And so I just wanted to share that with you, that I really enjoyed this, and you got me thinking in a different way. And whenever I'm on Patrick's author speaker, you don't know what you're going to expect, and it's always a wonderful surprise. It's like opening up like a Cracker Jack box and say, "Wow, look at this!" But this is like opening up a bunch of prizes, like 10 Cracker Jack boxes.
It's like
This
Christmas. Every Thursday's like Christmas.
Thank you.
It's like Christmas, and it opened up my visceral, my heart in a
Good.
loving way. And I love the drums, and it just reached my my heartstrings. So thank you so much. I didn't mean to go on too long, Patrick. Thanks so much.
No worries. Very good. Okay, Ron or Sue, anybody, either of you have any comments or thoughts?
How about Ron?
Go ahead, Ron.
Hey Taylor, how are you?
Oh, hey, Ron, what's up?
How you doing, man?
Good.
Boy, this was very interesting. I learned a lot more about you than I thought I knew a lot about you, but I learned a lot more today. So it was good. I
Nice.
never heard any of the folk stories. I thought that was great.
Good. Thank you, brother.
It was good listening, and I always like hearing your music.
Right
And
on.
I'm sure I'll be seeing you. We missed you last night, but I'm sure I'll be seeing you
Yeah.
soon.
Ron's done the drum meditation many, many times.
Yeah, man, it's wonderful. Anybody who's
Didn't you experience your own birth at one of them?
birth and death, the
Oh
same
my! See,
in
this
the
is what I'm
same
talking.
session.
Right, right.
I remember that I really felt bad for my mom because it seemed like it was a painful experience for her as I was coming out.
Well, it
And
is
then
what
I don't know, the death part, it's just a gray cloud came upon me, but it all worked out. I made it through the meditation, so here I am.
That's good. Thank you, Ron.
But anyway, it was nice hearing from you. I'm gonna move on. I gotta drive into the city right now, but this is great. Glad to hear it.
be
I'm
well.
sure it got recorded, and maybe I'll watch it again sometime.
Yeah, man.
I'll see you soon.
Take care.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, Sue, go right
Bye,
ahead.
bye.
Okay, so being one of Taylor's students, my question is, Taylor, what is the biggest lesson that you've learned from your students?
Oh yeah, man. The biggest lesson I have learned from my students, and this came from me not being able to verbally communicate to some of my masters in Africa that didn't speak any language that could be translated in the moment, where I had to really open the way that I listened had to simply broaden. You know what I mean? I couldn't listen to words telling me what to do. I had to look at what was going on. I had to hear what was going on. I had to try and observe some things that would help me understand. And then I realized, wow, okay, this is a really great thing. And I think that if I do that with my students, if I just dial into them so deep that I can learn how they need to be taught, then I think that I'll do that for each one of them. And that's what I try to do all the time. Sue can attest that sometimes when people are playing something, and I don't use the words right and wrong, I say different, all right? So if you're doing a thing that's if you intend to do the thing that I'm showing you and you're doing something different, you're not doing a thing that's wrong, in my opinion. You're doing a thing that's a separate thing. But maybe you don't know that it's that. Observing them for a long time, doing that thing, and learning what it is that why are they there? And what can I do to get them here? And most of the time, one of the things I love, a really easy tool I use, if I can't get someone to come back, I'll go exactly to what they're doing and do exactly what they're doing with them and really point a light on it and say, see, we're doing exactly the same thing. Now I'd like you to do a thing that's not that thing. It's a different thing. We're going to go and do this thing over here. And then they see that it's a different thing now, But learning how to teach people is probably my biggest gift that I've gotten from teaching so much, you know. And I'm thankful that I teach an instrument that people are automatically, it opens people, but even if it doesn't open people, if some people are kind of closed, it opens people. Like, I can see more about them than maybe they're even aware that they're showing. It's kind of like when somebody walks down the street, you can learn a lot about somebody looking at their gait, how they're walking. Maybe they're saying a little too much about themselves that they don't. Some people be sharing, you know, unsavory aspects about themselves and some of the things they do. But, you know, whatever the case. So that's the thing. I think I answered the question. Did I answer the question? Okay, good. Thank you. Good question, Sue.
I've got a question, Taylor. I'm a huge reggae music fan.
Uh-huh.
And so I believe that djembe can be used in different genres of music. Is that right? And if so, do you have any reggae music you can play for us?
The answer is it can be used. This musical instrument can, in fact, be used in any context. You know, I love playing non-traditional stuff. Some of my favorite stuff is jazz, you know, calypso. I do a lot of. I can perform like some Harry Belafonte. You know what I mean? If you know who Harry Belafonte is, we got shake, 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 senora, shake your body line, dance, 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 senora, dance it all the time. Work, 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 senora, work your body line, dance, 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 senora, dance it all the time. My girl's name is Sonora. I tell you, friends, I adore her. But when she dances, oh brother, she's a hurricane in all kinds of weather. Jump in the line, rock your body on time. Okay, I believe you. Jump in the line, rock your body on time. Okay, I believe you. Oh yeah, like that. That's good stuff. Thank you.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So you can apply this to any kind of music, sounds like.
Any kind of music. You just make sure you are a musician before you are a djembe player.
Okay, I see.
You know, and make sure djembe has it's such a powerful instrument that it can easily drown out everything in the room. So there are some gigs where I literally play with when I play for a yoga class, my tactic for making sure that I'm not being too loud is setting up at the farthest distance away from the teacher in the room. And if I can hear her instructions or his instructions, or their instructions, then they can as well. But that has had me dial it down literally to a point of just like this. But if I didn't think about those things, I would not be welcome back because I would just be drowning out everything all the time if I go on the default where djembe is.
Okay, I have that problem. I'm quite loud in many areas of my life. I'm very passionate, and sometimes my energy is too much for people. But
Yeah.
Can you do a little bit real quick? Just be really loud, 20, 30 seconds, really loud on that thing. So in other words, you can be the main act, or you could be the backup instrument. You could do either or.
100%. And I'm both. Every week I'm both. Every day I'm both. You know what I mean? And this cymbal is not part of a traditional djembe thing, but I love it a lot. And a lot of what I do is what you're saying. Tonight I'm going to be playing with a woman who is called the Folk Goddess. That's Diane Patterson at Shoe Booty Studios. Actually, I'm going to sit in with Bill Brickey, who's my longtime collaborator, brilliant guitar player, singer-songwriter. Bill is. He bumped into Diane in Hawaii. He heard a voice, followed the voice to find this woman playing, and they've been friends ever since. She is one of the best vocalists, singer-songwriters, guitar players I've ever heard in my life. And I have the great pleasure of sitting in with her tonight. So you can check my my Instagram and Facebook for that stuff.
Wow. You are amazing. This has been spectacular. As we finish up, what is your best 2 questions
Yeah.
By the way, before we finish with these two questions, anybody else have any questions or comments or thoughts that you want to share as we depart? Okay, two questions. What's the best advice you can give us? Best advice you can give us for becoming a better musician? That's question number one. And question number two, what's the best advice you can give us for having a better life?
Okay. For being a better musician, play your instrument a lot and find a good teacher, you know, and don't take it one to the other. Don't stop. Don't avoid playing your instrument until you find a teacher. I do recommend. I started dinking around. I started on a flow by myself, and I know I warned against, like, you know, bad practice, but if you feel your movement on the instrument and things feel intuitive, or if there's learning curves too. I don't know, maybe find a teacher first. Play your instrument. Play your instrument, have a teacher involved in some way, a teacher that's a good teacher. Some teachers themselves are down a wrong path, and I just don't even understand that sometimes. But if you don't know if you have a good teacher or not, you know, ask around. You know, I work at the Old Town School of Folk Music. We got great teachers there in so many different genres that it's a great community to be involved with. And the second question you asked was what?
Best life advice you can give us.
Life advice. Best life advice, I would say, if I say, and I get into this in the book, if I say follow your heart, follow your, you know, that is a nice thing to say, but if you've got things that are skewing the true representation of what you should be doing because of your socialization, your domestication, all of that thing, you got to sort that. So how do you know if what you're feeling is a correct thing? You know, is it really representative of what I should be doing? This feeling, I feel this way towards this thing. Do I really feel this way towards this thing, or is that bouncing around in a mirror box and coming out in a way where it looks like that's what's happening? How do I know? Get some kind of practice. Have a practice. I get into this in the book a lot. Have a practice. Have something that you're doing and you're getting good at and you're getting deeper at, and you are practicing anything. Once you get to a level where it's like a level of flow with the thing, in my opinion, you'll say, wow, I like this level of flow. I want this level of flow in my whole life, not just in my yoga, not just in my meditation, not just in my martial arts. I want it in my whole, I want this feeling. Now I'm going to seek this feeling. Now, two things I think are going to happen is that the gravity of things that give you that feeling will increase. And therefore, I mean, people talk about law of attraction, that kind of thing. All right, that's a different word for the same thing I think we're talking about. But if we feel if we're passionate about something, I feel like other passionate people come to us, and I feel like things related to that passion will come to us more, and things not related will stick out more and more as things that are not. No. And then if you don't have good boundary behavior, then you get some. You say no more often, you know. So, and then you fill the room with those things that give you that feeling of, you know, that you're looking, that you touched by way of your practice. Did I answer the question?
Patrick, you're on mute.
You're on mute. You're on mute, Patrick.
I said, Taylor, on behalf of Mary, our producer, Valerie, our corporate sponsor, and all of our guests today, from the bottom of our heart to yours, thank you. This has been spectacular. You've so inspired all of us, and God bless you, and thank you for your gifts. You are creating a better world through your hands and through your music and through your soul.
Thank you. Namaste. Namu. Obadaka.